Hello, if you are watching this video, you are checking out the Waukesha West High School Freshman and New Student Athletic and Activity Orientation Makeup video. If you were unable to attend with us earlier in August, it is important for you to view this presentation and then sign off upon completion so that your son or daughter is able to maintain their eligibility for Waukesha West High School. My name is Kyle Lemieux. I serve as Associate Principal Athletic Director here at West. Some other people that will be important to know include Dr. Deanna Burton, who serves as our Activities Director, Mrs. Kim Dutel, who's our assistant in the office and often your first line of communication. We also had at our orientation many of our head coaches and advisors present. If you, for whatever reason, have not been able to meet them yet, I would encourage you to check their contact information on our website, which we will review shortly. This is the plan of action for this video. This is a very condensed version of what was reviewed on the night of orientation. So feel free to go back, watch segments of this video again, but this is what we're looking to cover in our time together. So at West, when you walk in, it's an amazing place. There is evidence of success everywhere you look: banners, plaques, trophies, signs. But our hope is that we become so much more than just a school that has this achievement, this winning, and these displays to be able to be proud of. We want to be able to look back years from now and feel like we've made a difference in really developing the whole person. And that's where our mission is really born from, this idea of transforming aspiring adults through athletics. So if you look at the word transformation, it's defined as a thorough or dramatic change in form or appearance over time. We want our students to look different, to talk differently, to feel differently from the moment they walk in to the time when they walk across that graduation stage. We want to have them experience some adult-like opportunities and really take advantage of this environment of athletics and activities that is so unique, where we have this captive audience that really is just an awesome opportunity to motivate and to influence, maybe unlike any other environment. So as part of the orientation, we have our guests fill out a brief survey, and this tells us some things over the years, and so I'll refer to that here and there as we go through. The first question of, I believe that my child should experience adult-like responsibilities. It is clear that most people strongly agree with this type of statement when it comes to the philosophy of high school. Interestingly enough, that percentage of strongly agree shifts a little bit when asked if parents are ready to allow their own child to experience these things. It's one of the toughest parts about this high school transition of parenting, but still really key for this development process as young adolescents and high school students. So to be eligible from the athletics side, the long story short, we go to westwolverines.com and we check out our registration tab. There you'll see the portal to be able to fill out everything that needs to be done. And along with doing that, we will be checking things such as having a signed and current physical, the $150 participation fee that covers any number of sports throughout the year, 1, 2, 3 sports. It's all $150 no matter what. And the biggest change for this year for many students coming into high school for the first time, grades matter. That 2.0 GPA and having no more than one failing or incomplete grade is a big deal. And so we really take seriously the concept of student athlete. Which brings the question of, are you a competitor in the classroom? And this idea that we have so many great competitors that come through Waukesha West High School. And our hope is that that same effort and tenacity and focus that our athletes show when competing in the evening is also demonstrated when they're sitting in classes throughout the day. So to be a Wolverine, the honest truth is that being at Waukesha West High School is challenging, and it has an element of rigor and excellence that thankfully has been established in tradition. The difficult part now for new students is to rise to the occasion and meet those expectations. And so when it comes from this athletics point of view, what that really becomes is this idea of living out a championship culture. And to sum up this championship culture concept, the tagline at the bottom of the slide says, family-like connections with a relentless desire to improve. And so when considering these questions, I would encourage you to discuss these as a family and see where your son or daughter truly falls along this spectrum. Because our hope when we think about relationships and we consider the question, do you care about others more than yourself? I hope that answer is yes, but we know that's difficult. Likewise, do you trust your coaches and teammates enough to hear critical feedback? I find that one of the most difficult aspects of coaching today is that athletes are unable to take feedback and use it well. They feel put off or put down by any sort of constructive feedback, and they aren't able to manage it well. So, are we in a place relationally where we can accept that? From a results standpoint, do we have a growth mindset when we fail? Hopefully, we're not in the boat that as soon as something becomes hard, we try to find an out route, but instead we face challenges head on. And then finally, do we have a burning desire to improve and succeed? That there's a variety of reasons that students participate in athletics, but I hope that no matter what level they enter in, they find this internal push and motivation to have an improvement throughout their season, and that they would find every bit of success that they possibly can. So, long story short, student athletes are held to a higher standard. Another way of phrasing that, student athletes have more to lose. So, if a student gets into trouble throughout the school day and they have to go through a discipline process, let's say it was even significant enough that they're suspended from school, that's never fun, but they'll work through that. And then, upon completion of that suspension, let's say out of school, they would return and everything would hopefully get back to normal. If you're a student athlete, however, this is slightly different because not only do you have to deal with the school consequence, but you would then also have to work through issues with me as the athletic director and likely have a portion of your season taken away, which we'll discuss in a bit. When it comes down to it, like it says on the slide, in everything we do, we want you to picture WEST across your chest and that you represent Waukesha West High School, that your choices impact everyone around you from this point forward. So, in order to set people up for success, we have our policy, our athletic code in place to be able to keep people on the right tracks. And basically, what our code says in summary through these next few slides is that you have the privilege of participation. And because of this privilege, if you wish to keep that privilege, there's certain responsibilities and things that you need to live up to. And if you can do that, it's going to be a great credit to yourself and everyone else in your life. These rules of conduct are in enforcement 24/7, 365. There are no breaks for holidays, weekends, summers, or any other time. They are always in effect. One of the biggest elements of this code of conduct is your attendance at school. Anytime you are an active member of an athletic team or an activity, if you plan to attend that practice or rehearsal after school, you must be in attendance at least the final 50% of the day. On a competition or performance day, you must be in school the entirety of the day. If a student happens to be suspended from school for any reason, they would also not be eligible to participate in that day's after-school events. So sometimes, even the best of us can make mistakes. And when this happens with our students, there's a process that we follow. And so if I ever receive information that someone may have violated our athletic code of conduct, we invite them in, we present this idea, and the student has the opportunity to present their side of the story. After that, there might be other information that needs to be shared to really kind of collect the full story and the full picture of what took place. We'll get parents involved and let them know that these conversations are happening. And then ultimately, the athletic director or activities director makes a determination of whether or not this was a violation of our code of conduct. If it happens to be so, there will be a written notice that goes home. For a first violation, this would mean that up to 20% of the next season's contests would be that level of suspension. A second violation could mean that 50% of a season's contests could be involved in the suspension. A third would be a calendar year, and a fourth essentially means that you are no longer participating for Waukesha West High School. If a student is participating in an event at that moment, in the middle of a season, the suspension goes into effect immediately. If for whatever reason that student is not in a sport at that time. Let's say they're a winter athlete, but it's a fall violation. That will begin as soon as possible when the next sport starts. If a student attempts to complete a suspension, it is important that they participate for the full duration of that season in which the suspension takes place. If they don't, and they don't finish in good standing, it would result in that suspension being null and void and needing to be repeated. Anytime a student is suspended, we want to wrap them up and we want to have them completely involved. And so that means every practice, every meeting, every team dinner, every bus ride, that student is always involved. The only difference is that on the specific game or competition nights where the suspension is in place, they do not dress and appear as an eligible athlete. For students' activities, it's far different. Because activities are so wide-ranging in the frequency of meetings and when they take place and the big events they revolve around, it really comes down to the discretion of the activities director and that activity advisor to determine what the most appropriate consequence might look like. When a student has participation in both the athletic and activity side, the consequence is always applied in the athletic area. Honesty and cooperation, they're really important to us. We understand that these are awkward conversations and that oftentimes these types of conversations are the first instance that a student has in needing to deal through an adult-like conversation that has some challenges. Speaking from experience, we know that being honest and upfront right off the bat will always result in a better ending. We appreciate the ownership that students take through the process, and even though that means that consequences are still applied, there's an amazing amount of credibility that's built up when students can approach this in a positive manner. One way to approach it in a positive manner is new to the code this year, self-reporting. As it says here, if a student has a mistake, but they are able to self-report to the athletic director within 72 hours of the incident, and what they report maintains its accuracy throughout the investigation, we are then able to reduce that initial 20% suspension to a level that we see fit. Anytime you're involved in organizing, hosting, or distributing something that could put others in a rough place, this could result in an extension up to doubling of your code of conduct penalty. There's always an appeal procedure. It involves submitting something in writing to the principal and being able to state that reason. And then from there, it would work its way up the ladder as necessary. A really important element to keep in mind is the idea of vaping. And unfortunately, we don't have time within this presentation, but if you have not had the conversation at home yet, please do. As you see, 54% of our code violations in the last 2 years have involved vaping, and my fear is that this will only go up. So please have specific conversations at home about what your children are doing to be sure they can avoid these pitfalls. Likewise, on social media, we always ask that people are transparent and open. You are building an online, living, breathing resume in all that you do and post. And so we hope that we think before we click. We asked parents what they've done on their social media accounts of their children, and you can see that parents have many different approaches. But I hope that it opens up communication lines and builds trust so that everyone can not experience regret about what's online going down the road. At our orientation meeting, we had a chance to hear from some great seniors that unfortunately won't be part of this presentation. But finally, parents, I'm going to fly through these last couple examples, and I hope you'll take them to heart. Please make sure you're in contact with people at school and never be afraid to reach out to us. I hope you'll contact and access our parent resources page, especially the parent guide that you will find there. A few tips: self-advocacy and conflict resolution, they need to be practiced without parent interference. Playing time is a player to coach conversation point, not a parent to coach piece. Allow your children to own their decisions, good and bad. Please do not speak poorly of our coaches in front of your children. Certainly talk about the car ride home and how that can influence the good and bad of your relationship. And then encourage your kids to be involved in as many different activities as possible. So we encourage you to stay connected on Twitter and our West website. Thanks so much for joining us. Hope you have a great school year.